The dusty road stretched out ahead, winding like a ribbon into the hills beyond the small village of Marala. It wasn't the most traveled path, it barely qualified as a road. But for Amina, it was everything. It was escape. It was possibility. It was the only way forward. At 19, Amina had never left her village. She had grown up surrounded by rust-colored earth, sun-baked homes, and the heavy silence of tradition. Her world was defined by boundaries, of gender, of family, of expectation. Her mother had married at 16. Her sisters had followed the same path, one by one. And now, eyes were turning to Amina. But she was different. From the moment she had learned to read, the world had begun to widen. Books became her compass. She borrowed tattered pages from the school library and devoured them by candlelight. She learned of women who flew planes, discovered galaxies, and led revolutions. She dreamed in languages her neighbors didn't speak and saw futures no one else dared imagine. She knew her dream wasn't grand by some standards. She didn't want to be famous or rich. She just wanted to study engineering. She wanted to build things that made life better. To take the same tools men in her village used to build homes and apply them to a different kind of foundation, one made of ideas, progress, and purpose. But ambition came at a price. When she first told her father she had been accepted into a technical university in the capital city, his face darkened. "What will people say?" he asked, his voice low. "You're a girl. You're needed here. To help. To marry. To stay." She tried to reason. To explain. But it was like arguing with a wall made of fear and centuries of custom. For weeks, silence hung between them. Her mother watched quietly, torn between pride and resignation. Then one evening, as Amina sat outside with her acceptance letter folded in her lap like a fragile secret, her father came and sat beside her. "I don't understand this path," he said. "But I see the fire in your eyes. I just hope the world doesn't put it out." That was all the permission she needed. The next morning, with a single bag slung over her shoulder and the sun barely touching the horizon, Amina stepped onto that winding road. Her village faded behind her as each step echoed louder in her heart. Courage, courage, courage. City life was overwhelming. Crowded buses, unfamiliar faces, buildings that seemed to scrape the sky. The university campus pulsed with energy, but also with competition. Most of her classmates came from cities, from families who understood equations and theory and didn't blink at women in labs. Amina struggled. She failed her first physics test. She couldn't afford most textbooks. Her accent made her feel out of place. There were nights she stared at the ceiling in her tiny dorm room and wondered if her father had been right. But she refused to give up. She spent her evenings in the library, copying notes from borrowed books. She made friends with students who didn't laugh at her questions. She tutored younger girls for a few extra coins and used every spare moment to strengthen her foundation. Bit by bit, she rose. In her second year, she designed a water filtration system for a community project. Her design was chosen over those of older students. She spoke at a local tech forum. Her name began to circulate, not loudly, but persistently, like water carving stone. But the greatest test didn't come from a classroom. During a holiday break, Amina returned to Marala. Her father greeted her with cautious pride. The villagers watched her like she had grown wings. But when she visited the school to speak to the girls, she met resistance. The headmaster, an old man with narrow eyes, refused to let her in. "You'll give them ideas," he said. "Unrealistic dreams." That night, Amina wrote a letter to the education board. It took months, but eventually she was allowed to return, not just as a guest, but as a mentor. She started a science club, taught girls how to solder circuits, brought them stories of women scientists, lit the spark. By the time she graduated with honors, Amina had not only walked the road less traveled, she had paved a new one behind her. Today, She works as an engineer on sustainable infrastructure projects in rural communities, including her own. She returns to Marala often, where her name is now spoken with admiration and pride. Her father, once fearful, now boasts to neighbors about his daughter's blueprints. Amina never forgot how it felt to take that first step. To walk with uncertainty. To carry dreams no one else believed in. The road less traveled isn't paved with certainty. It's paved with courage, one determined step at a time. And Amina, she didn't just walk it. She built it.